President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor J. Mana Opoku-Agyeman, Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, members of Council of State, Majority Leader of Parliament and Leader of Government Business, the National Chairman and the General Secretary of the party, senior party members, numerous hard-working party executives at all levels who have filled this room, distinguished guests, Nananom, esteemed colleagues of mine, ministers of state, MPs, friends of JEA Mills Heritage, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My task here is the simplest and the easiest, because I'm so happy to be the one to introduce the person going to speak about the man at Mills. On 2nd May 2011, working in my capacity as Deputy Western Regional Minister, an appointment he gave me, with senior party officials who are seated to my left-hand side as I stand up here, who had come to the Western region to work with me on how to move our government and party forward. Whilst there, I received a phone call that my dearly beloved mother had passed. Within 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds, His Excellency, the President then, Professor Evans Fifi at Mills, was on the phone with me and said to me, "Don't worry, Kawa Kumatu Yebesho. Mema, Ama Benywa Do will take over." Instantly, I was at peace. That is the man. So he cared so much, not only about the job he had given us, but even about all the things that were going on in our lives. I am here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you an exceptional Ghanaian, a trailblazer, a woman of intellect, conviction, and service, Mrs. Charlotte Kirsten-Smith Osei, who is going to give us the Atta Mills lecture this afternoon. In honoring the memory and legacy of President John Evans Atta Mills, a man of principle, peace, and public purpose, it is only fitting that we welcome a speaker who embodies many of the same virtues that defined his leadership. Mrs. Charlotte Osei is a lawyer by training and a public servant by calling. She holds degrees in law from the University of Ghana, an LLM from Queen's University in Canada, and a master's in business leadership from University of South Africa, Pretoria. She made history in 2015 when she was appointed as chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, becoming the first woman to hold that office. In that role, she supervised one of the most pivotal elections in our recent history, upholding democratic principles under immense national and international scrutiny. It was called one of the world's best elections by international observers. Before that, she served as the first female chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, where she championed civic awareness and democratic participation, core values that President Atta Mills upheld with unwavering devotion. Mrs. Osei's commitment to democratic 2025 John Evans Atta Mills Heritage Lecture, Mrs. Charlotte Osei.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, henceforth Auntie Nana, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Julius Debra, Chief of Staff and Chair of today's lecture, members of the board of the J.E. Mills Memorial Heritage, members of the Actor Mills and allied families, honorable ministers of state, members of parliament, members of the Council of State, excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, our revered chiefs and queen mothers, our landlord, the Vice Chancellor of the UPSA, justices of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court, members of the Fourth Estate, my brothers and sisters. Is it too late to swap places with Auntie Nana for her to be here so I can? You would, okay. In a world of noise, integrity is a silent superpower. It is an incredible honor to stand before all of you today to deliver this year's J.E. Mills Memorial Lecture. I do so with deep emotion and profound humility, paying tribute not only to a president, but to a teacher, a mentor, and a father figure whose life significantly shaped mine and the lives of many others. As I prepare to share my reflections of Uncle Fifi, I am reminded of former President Muhammadu Buhari's words. He said, President Atta Mills was a good man, a very good man, one of the very best from our continent. These words capture the essence of the man we honor today. My name is Charlotte Smith Osei, and I had the extraordinary privilege of being taught commercial law by Dr. Mills, as he was, at the University of Ghana, Lagos, and later company law at the Ghana School of Law. More significantly, in 2011, he appointed me as chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, making me the first woman to hold that position in Ghana's history. Today, I speak as a mentee, reflecting on the profound impact of a teacher who saw potential where others saw youth, who offered opportunity where others saw inexperience, and who built bridges where others saw divisions. The theme for this year's memorial lecture is Atta Mills, a case study for the Fourth Republic. I will be approaching this theme through three lenses. I will look at Prof as a man, Prof as a teacher, and Prof as a president. And then I'll share the reflections of a mentee. Public service and human dignity. He was born to John Atta Mills Sr., an educationist at Commander Teacher Training College, and Mercy Dawson Amwa. Young Fifi was a second child and the first son among 7 siblings. From his father, we learned that he inherited a love of learning and teaching, and from his mother, he gained the gentle strength that would characterize his leadership style. His educational journey, as we've been told, took him from Huni Valley Methodist Primary School to Commander Methodist Middle School, and then to Achimota School, where he completed his ordinary and advanced level certificates in 1961 and 1963. At the University of Ghana, he completed his Bachelor of Law degree and Professional Law certificate in 1967. Mills's pursuit of higher education took him to the London School of Economics for his LLM in 1968, and then to the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London, where he earned his PhD in law in 1971 at the remarkably young age of 27. His selection as a Fulbright scholar to Stanford Law School in 1971 was not merely an academic achievement. It was a testament to Prof's character and potential. The Fulbright program chose him not just for his intellectual capabilities, but for his potential to be a bridge builder and a leader. At Stanford, his colleagues remember him as someone who listened more than he spoke, who asked thoughtful questions, and who approached every challenge with both intellectual rigor and human compassion. He was, in the words of one Stanford professor, a scholar gentleman in the truest sense of the term. Perhaps no quality defined Mills the man more than his humility. In a continent where political leaders are often known for high-handed approaches to power, Mills remained remarkably grounded throughout his life and presidency. His humility was not weakness, it was strength under control. This humility was evident in his famous declaration that I have always said that I will be president for all Ghanaians, whether they voted for me or not, and without consideration for which part of the country they come from. These were not mere campaign promises. They were the words of a man who truly understood that leadership is service and not privilege. His approach to leadership emboldened me personally on 2 occasions to tell him while he was president that I thought the decision he took was wrong, and in another case, the decision was unfair because he had not listened to the other party. Typical of Prof, he took the criticism very calmly. We argued as lawyers, and he told me, when you're president, you see things very differently. Eventually, in one of the matters, months later, I got a message from him. He said, you were right and I was wrong. That was an emotional moment for me and a great lesson in leadership. And I did learn that power that fears criticism is already bankrupt. In an era when political integrity often seemed like an oxymoron, Mills stood as a beacon of moral leadership. His integrity was not situational, it was absolute. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, current president of Nigeria, best captured this aspect of Prof in his tribute when Prof died. He said, President Atta Mills was a man with a profound, comprehensive intellect. Unlike many individuals whose public courage as a politician diverges negatively from their private persona, the private and public morals and practices of this man were undifferentiated. There was no seam dividing the public official from the private man. He was guided by a moral compass that did not waver according to the circumstance. Before President Tinubu knew this, those of us who were his students knew this already. Interesting story from first year. We had decided to go to London over the summer holidays to job. My first challenge, of course, was getting a visa. I went for the visa interview, and the official interviewing me asked me what I was going to do in London for 3 months. I told him I was going to see the sights. And he said, you're a law student. I said, yes. He said, okay. Can I advise you? I said, sure. He said, before you become a lawyer, make sure you become a better liar. I said, thank you. I got my visa, and with my roommates, we went off to London to job. Then the university reopened, and we were late. I managed to get into Ghana before my 2 roommates, and I managed to get myself registered for second year. My 2 roommates came back, and they were told by the dean that they had been deferred for 1 year. One of my roommates, Irama, was actually a niece of Professor Mills, who was vice dean. So we figured, go to Prof's home, go and plead, and of course, if Prof makes a case for Irama, it means everybody else can sneak through. So Irama goes to Mills's house that evening and comes back to our room, very, very angry. He said, what did Prof say? Oh, Prof said, it's only 1 year. It doesn't matter. You can study French or computer during that 1 year. At that point, everybody else knew that there was no hope. Rama spent the year studying French. So we knew that his approach to corruption was uncompromising. So when he said, I would not spare any government official, be it past or present, who would be found guilty of embezzling state funds, it was not political rhetoric, it was a moral conviction that guided his administration. Prof was also fundamentally a man of peace. This was not passive pacifism, but active peacemaking. He understood that peace was not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, understanding, and mutual respect. His philosophy of peace was captured in his words: "We are going to ensure that there is peace before, during, and after the election. Because when there is no peace, it's not the elites who will suffer. It's the ordinary people who have elected us into office." When we were students, Prof told my class, this was a peacemaker, that as far as possible, we should make sure we're not the reason for anyone losing their job. Many of my classmates remember this portion. We can't remember what we were talking about. Later in my public life, trying to be the good mentee, I applied this advice to my own significant harm. But the good thing was, Prof was right. There was peace because I took a path of peace. Mills taught us that reputation built in silence lasts longer than applause. For Prof, the classroom was more than a venue for transmitting information. It was a sacred space where minds were opened, characters were formed, and futures were shaped. Students who attended his law classes remember a professor who demanded excellence but provided the support necessary to achieve it. He had very high expectations, and his marks were usually very low. But he also had high investment in our success. Mills understood that teaching law was not just about imparting legal knowledge, it was about developing legal minds. He taught his students not just what to think, but how to think. He emphasized critical analysis, logical reasoning, and ethical reflection. He wanted his students to understand not just the letter of the law, but its spirit and its purpose. He saw law as a tool for addressing social justice, or for enabling social justice and national development. He did not see legal education as merely professional training, but as preparation for service to society. Hence his earlier admonition about not being the cause of anyone losing their job. He also emphasized the importance of integrity in legal practice. He understood that as lawyers, we would face situations where we could choose between personal gain and professional ethics. Through his teaching and personal example, he sought to instill in his students the moral foundation necessary to make the choice. And this teaching went beyond the classroom to his approach to everything. Honorable Nana Oye and her friends were living on campus, and Mills was teaching at the law school. His lectures were at 7 a.m. in the morning because he had to lecture before going to the IRS. And he started giving a group of them lifts to Makola. So when there were 2, it was fine. But as word spread, they became 3, and then 4, and then 5. So now, Prof decided that when he gets there, he's not going to decide who gets into his car. The first ones to arrive get the lift. And that was Prof. Always fair, even in the little decisions. While he was an excellent classroom teacher, his greatest impact as an educator came through his mentorship relationships with individual students. Prof had an extraordinary ability to identify potential in young people and to nurture that potential through guidance, encouragement, and opportunity. As one of his students in both commercial law and company law, I experienced firsthand the transformative power of Prof's mentorship. Prof saw something in me that I had not yet seen in myself. He challenged me to think more deeply, to write more clearly, and to aspire more boldly. But more than that, Prof believed in me at a time when I was still learning to believe in myself. Mills was particularly committed to mentoring young women in law, recognizing the barriers we faced and the potential it represented. Lady Julia Osei and myself were two young women who probably would not have been able to obtain our Master of Laws degrees without the support of Prof. Mills. He was a constant referee on every young student applicant for graduate work. Through Prof's support, one of my classmates ended up at Prof's alma mater, the London School of Economics, for his LLM. And Prof helped him to get his first job at the Ghana Stock Exchange when he came back home. And for all the students, Prof did not have to know where we came from, who our parents were, he just helped. Prof was always accessible to his students. When I was at Queen's University in Canada, I worked in the library. And one time they were throwing away all the books where they had additional copies. So I asked them, what were they going to do with the books? They said they were going to be trashed. And I said, oh, could I have them for the law faculty? And they said, yes. So I ended up with 48 boxes of books in my apartment. Now, I didn't know how these books were going to get to Ghana. Every week, my landlord would come and look at the boxes and ask me when the boxes were moving. Eventually, I think Prof was at the IRS at the time. I managed to get a message to Prof that I was about to be kicked out of my apartment with 48 boxes of law books. Prof immediately called the High Commissioner. They sent a van and they picked these 48 boxes of books before my landlord kicked me and the books onto the streets of Kingston, Ontario. That was Prof, always accessible. The two tigers at the door. So I used to deal through Colonel Atachi and Colonel Lawson and get in there and make my request, and then Prof would call Mr. Newman and we'll wonder, how did you get in here? So anyway, I'd want to see Prof to fight for some additional resources for the NCC election year activities. I met Prof in a very sad mood. He was not happy. He talked to me about very vicious media attacks, some from people who knew him better. And I said, oh, Prof, but you shouldn't be listening to the media or reading this stuff. And you need to detach completely. I then added that they would only appreciate you when you're gone. I meant after his tenure, I had no way of knowing that would be my last physical meeting with Prof. After Prof's death, I was put on the funeral committee and was part of those working on publications, compiling all his tributes from the many diverse sources into the tribute book and editing them. What struck me was the most beautiful tributes Prof received, submitted by some of the very same people we had discussed attacking him in the media shortly before he died. And I learned a huge lesson. To serve well in public service, you must do right by God, by conscience, and by the law. You must be ready to suffer the attacks of people from the lenses of current affairs. But you must be certain in the knowledge that history will always vindicate the just. I held these lessons closely. As I conclude these reflections on Professor General Mills, the man, the teacher, and the president, I am struck by the timeless relevance of his example. In a world that often seems to reward cynicism over idealism, self-interest over service, and division over unity, Professor Mills's life stands as a beacon of what is possible when leadership is rooted in character, guided by principle, and dedicated to the common good. One of the most remarkable aspects of Prof's life was its integration. Prof was not three different people, the man, the teacher, and the president, but one person whose character, values, and principles remained consistent across all roles and contexts. The humility that characterized him as a man informed his approach as a teacher and shaped his style as president. This integration is perhaps Prof's most important lesson for all of us, but especially for young people who are still forming their identities and choosing their paths. Prof showed us that it is possible to be authentic and consistent, to maintain one's principles while adapting to different roles and responsibilities. As we honor Prof's memory, we must also commit ourselves to continue his work. This is not just the responsibility of those who knew him personally, but of all Ghanaians and all Africans who share his vision of a better future. For young people, it is important to pursue excellence in your education and your work, to seek out mentors and to be willing to learn, to take advantage of opportunities to serve others, and commit yourself to building the kind of society that Professor Mills envisioned. For leaders at all levels, it is important that we invest in young people, that we create opportunities for their development and advancement, that we lead with integrity and humility, and to remember that leadership is ultimately about service, not privilege. For all of us, we need to embody the values that Professor Mills exemplified: honesty in our dealings, compassion in our relationships, excellence in our work, and service in our communities. Professor Mills once said that my doors are always open. We'll make sure to provide the resources and make the necessary contacts. As a government, we will give you the fullest support. These words capture the essence of his approach to leadership and mentorship throughout his life. Even in death, Prof's doors remain open. His example continues to teach us. His vision continues to inspire us, who for the past 30 years have organized this annual lecture in honor of a truly great soul and for giving me the honor of a lifetime by selecting me as a keynote speaker for today. May we all be worthy of Prof's trust. May we be faithful to his example, and may we be tireless in continuing the work that Prof started. May the memory of Professor John Evans Atta Mills forever be a blessing and a call to service. Thank you.